Welcome to my stream. We're gonna have a quiet, calm Saturday morning, I hope. This is my first stream where I'm really gonna be focusing more on the ASMR aspects. I've got some new audio equipment I'm testing out here, and a new visualization of my voice, I guess. This is sort of my first VTuber model, you could say. It's kind of a low-budget VTuber model. But we'll see how it goes. I'm a little limited in which triggers I can do. At this point, I've got some more equipment coming, but I figured out a few things I can do. I'm gonna actually stop the treadmill for now. Might start that up again later. Okay, so I thought we might also do a little poetry reading this morning. I do enjoy poetry reading. Sometimes it's not the best ASMR, but it'll do. So first, I'm going to read one of my favorite poems. Not necessarily the favorite poem, but I like it quite a lot. It's by Robert Frost. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Many people are familiar with the final two lines of this poem. I'm not going to spoil it for you if you don't know it, but you might recognize those final two lines, but not know where they come from. Okay, so here we go. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening by Robert Frost, 1922. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It's really a lovely poem, I think. I often think about this poem just in the course of my normal life, as life passes by quickly and you can't necessarily stop to appreciate it all the time. I think I might come back to Robert Frost later, but let's switch to something slightly different. A poem from around 100 years earlier, a little more, maybe 200 years earlier. 100 years earlier-ish. This is by William Wordsworth. It's called The World is Too Much With Us. This one, being an older poem, is a little bit less accessible or relatable to a modern audience. The language is a little bit harder to decode than Robert Frost, but it's still quite pretty. The world is too much with us late and soon. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon, this sea that bears her bosom to the moon. The winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. That was The World is Too Much With Us by William Wordsworth. A poem which is now 200 years old. It's interesting to think about how long humans have been writing poetry. 200 years is really just a blink of an eye in the history of poetry and music and literature in general. Art. Okay. Let's go back to Robert Frost. I really like Robert Frost because he's more recent, and the language therefore is a bit easier to understand, I think, if you're just coming at it new and haven't had a chance to study the poem. This one is called Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring mending time we find them here. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. Keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves and some are nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across, and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but It's not elves exactly. And I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. That was The Mending Wall by Robert Frost, 1914. I think I may spin up my treadmill here and do a little walking. I'm interested to know if I can ever make ASMR work while I'm walking on a treadmill. It's quite an unusual idea, I have to admit. I've done about as much work as I can do so far in trying to reduce and improve the sound of the treadmill that's coming through. I hope that most of the sound that's left is relaxing in a rhythmic, heartbeaty sort of way. So, let's continue with a little poetry. I think I might read a poem that I've never read before. This will be a new one for me. This one is by Longfellow, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. This one also is roughly 200 years old. Let's discover it together. It's called A Psalm of Life. Tell me not, in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us farther than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant, let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God o'erhead. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing o'er life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. That was A Psalm of Life by Longfellow. That was my first time reading it. I find it interesting. It has the most important thing that a poem should have, which is that it sounds good. Honestly, what it means to me is always secondary for a poem, but this one sounds quite good. I also, to the extent I grasp its meaning on first read, like its meaning quite a bit. We should live our lives. Live in the present. Leave footprints in the sands of time behind us. A classic message, I guess. Let's see what other poems we can find. How about a poem called Flight of Fancy? It's quite a modern poem, but it is in the public domain, so I'm allowed to read it. This is called Flight of Fancy by Frank Hallowell, written in 2001. A mere blink in the history of poetry. If I had a magic carpet or a giant set of wings, I'd leave this world of parking lots and noise and motor cars, and I'd fly to far-off places, and I'd see a million things, and I'd sleep beneath a canopy of 50 million stars. So play a game of let's pretend and climb aboard my carpet. And we'll fly away and do those things that we usually cannot. We'll race the dawn around the world as swiftly as a comet and set down in a gentle land, the island of Shalott. We'll journey then to Scotland, to a misty rock-bound coast. And if we listen to the bleak sea wind, we'll surely hear the knell of a phantom church bell tolling for a long-dead pirate's ghost that wanders still the headland, listening for the Inchcape bell. A horse-drawn carriage waiting near a lake that's frozen over. The snow is falling gently in the wood that's dark and deep. But we have no time to tarry. This is just a short stopover, for we have things to do and miles to go before we sleep. The undulating curtains of the northern lights are glowing, with their dancing colors beckoning as far as we can see. We'll see the Yukon's frozen face and feel the chill wind blowing, and we'll rest beside old Lake Labarge and talk of Sam McGee. Now across the bleak Aleutians, past the snows of Fujiyama, to the top of mighty Everest, where we'll enjoy the view of the Himalayan valleys and the mountain panorama, and the one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu. It's dawning with the vista of the wide brown land before us, endless miles of golden beaches as our carpet breaks too slow. I hope you all enjoyed your trip and none of you were nervous. It's morning and there's movement at the station down below. Once again, that was called Flight of Fancy by Frank Hallowell, 2001. This is part of a series of poems by Frank Hallowell called Ports of Call. So there are references in that poem to these other poems, including a reference to the poem that I opened this stream with, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Let's see. Here we have another poem, which is again new to me. This will be my first read through blind. This is from 1802 by Robert Southey. It's called The Inchcape Rock. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed o'er the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. The abbot of Atherbrothok had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and o'er the waves its warning rung. When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock, and blessed the abbot of Atherbrothok. The sun in heaven was shining gay. All things were joyful on that day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled round, and there was joyance in their sound. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck. He felt the cheering of the spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, my men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Atherbrothok. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape Rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat, and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. Down sunk the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Atherbrothok. Sir Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day. And now grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. So thick a haze o'erspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at evening it hath died away. On the deck the rover takes his stand, so dark it is they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. Canst hear, said one, the breakers roar, for methinks we should be near the shore. Now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish we could hear the Inchcape bell. They hear no sound, the swell is strong, though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. Oh Christ, it is the Inchcape Rock. Sir Ralph the rover tore his hair, he cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in on every side, the ship is sinking beneath the tide. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the Inchcape bell the devil below was ringing his knell. That was The Inchcape Rock, a poem by Robert Southey, written in 1802. I'd say the moral of the story in that one is not subtle, just straightforward. literary irony. It was a nice poem, though. Shall we look for another poem? Let's see. Let's try another poem that's completely new to me. This one, from 1907 by Robert W. Service, called The Cremation of Sam McGee. Sorry, just had to clear my throat there and hydrate a bit. Okay, The Cremation of Sam McGee by Robert W. Service. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge, I cremated Sam McGee. Now Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows. Why he left his home in the south to roam round the pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell. Though he'd often say in his homely way that he'd sooner live in hell. On a Christmas day, we were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail. Talk of your cold, through the Parker's fold it stabbed like a driven nail. If our eyes we'd closed, then the lasses froze till sometimes we couldn't see. It wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. And that very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed, and the stars o'erhead were dancing heel to toe. He turned to me, and Cap, says he, I'll cash in this trip, I guess. And if I do, I'm asking that you won't refuse my last request. Well, he seemed so low that I couldn't say no. Then he says with a sort of moan, it's the cursed cold, and it's got right hold, till I'm chilled clean through to the bone. Yet 'tain't being dead, it's my awful dread of the icy grave that pains. So I want you to swear that foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains. A pal's last need is a thing to heed, so I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he looked ghastly pale. He crouched on the sleigh and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried horror-driven, with a corpse half hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. It was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, you may tax your brawn and brains, but you promised true, and it's up to you to cremate these last remains. Now a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. In the days to come, though my lips were dumb, in my heart, how I cursed that load. In the long, long night, by the lone firelight, while the huskies round in a ring howled out their woes to the homeless snows. Oh God, how I loathed the thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed too heavy and heavier grow, and on I went, though the dogs were spent, and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad, and I felt half mad, but I swore I would not give in, and I'd often sing to the hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake Labarge, and a derelict there lay. It was jammed in the ice, but I saw in a trice it was called the Alice May. And I looked at it, and I thought a bit, and I looked at my frozen chum. Then, "Here," said I, with a sudden cry, "is my crematorium." Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit a boiler fire. Some coal I found that was lying around, and I heaped the fuel higher. The flames just soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze you seldom see. And I burrowed a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. Then I made a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. And the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the wind began to blow. It was icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks, and I don't know why. And the greasy smoke in an inky cloak went streaking down the sky. I do not know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out, and they danced about ere again I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, "I'll just take a peep inside. I guess he's cooked, and it's time I looked." Then the door I opened wide, and there sat Sam, looking cool and calm in the heart of the furnace roar. And he wore a smile that you could see a mile, and he said, "Please close that door. It's fine in here, but I greatly fear you'll let in the cold and storm. Since I left Plumtree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge I cremated Sam McGee. I quite liked that one. I'm surprised how much I liked that one. For a poem I've never heard of, by a poet I'm not familiar with. It's amazing to me sometimes, the sheer quantity of amazing art that humanity has produced. How much of it has been lost already, and yet still there's so much. So much of it is good. I could spend my whole life just consuming it and not even get through more than a tiny fraction. Alrighty. Let's move on to another new poem by a new poet that I've never heard of. We'll discover it at the same time together. I'm going to take a brief pause before. Okay, we're back. I just need to get my ears back in so I can hear myself. And we'll start walking again, because why not? Okay, so back to poetry. This is a poem called The Reading Mother by Strickland Gillian, who lived from 1869 to 1954. Apparently we don't know when this poem was written, but clearly sometime between 1869 and 1954. The Reading Mother, Strickland Gillian. I had a mother who read to me sagas of pirates who scoured the sea, cutlasses clenched in their yellow teeth, blackbirds stowed in the hold beneath. I had a mother who read me lays of ancient, gallant, golden days, stories of Marmion and Ivanhoe, which every boy has a right to know. I had a mother who read me tales of Sellert, the hound of the hills of Wales, true to his trust till his tragic death, faithfulness blent with his final breath. I had a mother who read me the things that wholesome life to the boy heart brings, stories that stir with an upward touch. Oh, that each mother of boys were such. You may have tangible wealth untold, caskets of jewels and coffers of gold. Richer than you I can never be. I had a mother who read to me. That was The Reading Mother by Strickland Gillian. Quite sweet. I think I'll come back to that one and read it again. Let's see. Looks like we can go back to Alfred Lord Tennyson, a pompous name. I suppose once upon a time poets enjoyed having pompous names. These days, I think, people prefer not to take themselves quite so seriously. But anyway, he wrote some good poems, I suppose. This one is called The Brook. Come from haunts of coot and hern, I make a sudden sally, and sparkle out among the fern to bicker down a valley. By 30 hills I hurry down, or slip between the ridges of by 20 thorps a little town, and 100 bridges. Till last by Philip's farm I flow to join the brimming river, for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. I chatter over stony ways in little sharps and trebles. I bubble into eddying bays. I babble on the pebbles. With many a curve my banks I fret, by many a field and fallow, and many a fairy foreland set, with willow weed and mallow. I chatter as I flow to join the brimming river, for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. I wind about and in and out, with here a blossom sailing, and here and there a lusty trout, and here and there a grayling, and here and there a foamy flake upon me as I travel, with many a silver water break above the golden gravel, and draw them all along and flow to join the brimming river, for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. I steal by lawns and grassy plots, I slide by hazel covers, I move the sweet forget-me-nots that grow for happy lovers. I slip, I slide, I gloom, I glance among my skimming swallows. I make the netted sunbeam dance against my sandy shallows. I murmur under moon and stars in brambly wildernesses. I linger by my shingly bars. I loiter around my cresses. And out again I curve and flow to join the brimming river. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. That was The Brook by Alfred Lord Tennyson from the 19th century. It's a pretty poem. Let's see if we can find another. How about another by Alfred Lord Tennyson? This one from 1842, 180 years ago. This one's quite long. It has a part 1, a part 2, a part 3, and a part 4. It's called The Lady of Shalott. Part 1. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and rye that clothe the world and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many-towered Camelot, and up and down the people go, gazing where the lilies blow round an island there below, the island of Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens quiver, little breezes dusk and shiver, So the wave that runs forever by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 grey walls and 4 grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott. By the margin willow-veiled slide the heavy barges trailed by slow horses, and unhailed the shallop flitteth silken-sailed, skimming down to Camelot. But who hath seen her wave her hand, or at the casement seen her stand? Or is she known in all the land, the Lady of Shalott? Only reapers reaping early, in among the bearded barley, hear a song that echoes cheerly from the river winding clearly down to towered Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening whispers 'tis the fairy Lady of Shalott. Part 2 of the Lady of Shalott. There she weaves by night and day a magic web with colours gay. She has heard a whisper say, a curse is on her if she stay to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, and so she waveth steadily, and little other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. And moving through a mirror clear that hangs before her all the year, shadows of the world appear. There she sees the highway near, winding down to Camelot. There the river eddy whirls, and there the surly village churls, and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or long-haired page in crimson clad, goes on by to towered Camelot. And sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding 2 and 2. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shalott. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights, for often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music went to Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead came 2 young lovers lately wed. I am half sick of shadows, said the Lady of Shalott. Part 3 of The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. A bow shot from her bower eaves, he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A red-crossed knight forever kneeled to a lady in his shield, that sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridle bells rang merrily as he rode down to Camelot. And from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rode his armor rung beside remote Shalott. All in the blue unclouded weather, thick jeweled shone the saddle leather. The helmet and the helmet feather burned like one burning flame together as he rode down to Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor trailing light moves over still Shalott. His broad clear brow in the sunlight glowed, on burnished hooves his war horse trode, from underneath his helmet flowed his coal-black curls as on he rode. As he rode down to Camelot, from the bank and from the river, he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tira lira by the river, sang Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom, she made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. The curse is come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. Part 4 of The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning. The broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily in the low sky raining, overtowered Camelot. Down she came and found a boat beneath a willow left afloat, and round about the prow she wrote the Lady of Shalott. And down the river's dim expanse, like some bold seer in a trance, seeing all his own mischance, with a glassy countenance, did she look to Camelot. And at the closing of the day, she loosed the chain, and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott. Lying robed in snowy white, that loosely flew to left and right, the leaves upon her falling light. Through the noises of the night, she floated down to Camelot, as the boat head wound along. The willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song, the Lady of Shalott. Heard a carol mournful holy, chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were darkened wholly. Turned to towered Camelot, for ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside, singing in her song she died, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, dead pale between the houses high, silent into Camelot. Out upon the wharfs they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and round the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. Who is this and what is here? And in the lighted palace near died the sound of royal cheer, and they crossed themselves for fear, all the knights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said, she has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott. That was The Lady of Shalott, all 4 parts, by Alfred Lord Tennyson, 1842. It was an enjoyable poem. One of those poems that doesn't have to mean anything. Doesn't have to teach you anything. It just is. And it's pretty to listen to. Let's see if we can find another poem. I might be running out of poems that I can read that I haven't read yet. Oh, here's a good one. The Man from Snowy River. This one is by A.B. Banjo Patterson, and it was written in 1890. A different age, but humans were still humans. The Man from Snowy River. There was movement at the station, for the world had passed around, that the colt from Old Regret had got away, had joined the wild bush horses. He was worth £1,000. So all the cracks had gathered to the fray, all the tried and noted riders from the stations near and far had mustered at the homestead overnight. For the bushmen love hard riding where the wild bush horses are, and the stock horse snuffs the battle with delight. There was Harrison, who made his pile when Pardon warmed the cup. The old man with his hair as white as snow, but few could ride beside him when his blood was fairly up. He would go wherever horse and man could go. And Clancy of the Overflow came down to lend a hand. No better horseman ever held the reins, for never horse could throw him while the saddle girths would stand. He learnt to ride while droving on the plains. And one was there, a stripling on a small and weedy beast. He was something like a racehorse undersized, with a touch of Timor pony, 3 parts thoroughbred at least. And such as are by mountain horsemen prized, he was hard and tough and wiry, just the sort that won't say die. There was courage in his quick, impatient tread, and he bore the badge of gameness in his bright, fiery eye, and the proud and lofty carriage of his head. But still so slight and weedy, one would doubt his power to stay, and the old man said, "That horse will never do. For a long and tiring gallop, lad, you'd better stop away. Those hills are far too rough for such as you." So he waited, sad and wistful. Only Clancy stood his friend. "I think we ought to let him come," he said. "I warrant he'll be with us when he's wanted at the end. For both his horse and he are mountain bred. He hails from Snowy River, up by Coscu's side, where the hills are twice as steep and twice as rough, where a horse's hoofs strike firelight from the flintstones every stride. A man that holds his own is good enough, and the Snowy River riders on the mountains make their home. Where the river runs, those giant hills between, I have seen full many horsemen since I first commenced to roam, but nowhere yet such horsemen have I seen." So he went. They found the horses by the big mimosa clump. They raced away towards the mountain's brow, and the old man gave his orders, "Boys, go at them from the jump. No use to try for fancy riding now, and Clancy, you must wheel them. Try and wheel them to the right. Ride bully, lad, and never fear the spills. For never yet was rider that could keep the mob in sight, if once they gained the shelter of those hills." So Clancy rode to wheel them. He was racing on the wing, where the best and boldest riders take their place. And he raced his stock horse past them, and he made the rages ring. With the stock whip, as he met them face to face, then they halted for a moment, while he swung the dreaded lash. But they saw their well-loved mountain full in view, and they charged beneath the stock whip with a sharp and sudden dash. And off into the mountain scrub they flew. Then fast the horsemen followed, with where the gorges deep and black resounded to the thunder of their tread, and the stock whips woke the echoes, and they fiercely answered back. From cliffs and crag that beetled overhead, and upward, ever upward, the wild horses held their way, where mountain ash and Kurrajong grew wide, and the old man muttered fiercely, "We may bid the mob good day. no man can hold them down the other side. When they reached the mountain's summit, even Clancy took a pull. It might well make the boldest hold their breath. The wild hop scrub grew thickly, and the hidden ground was full of wombat holes, and any slip was death. But the man from Snowy River let the pony have his head, and he swung his stock whip round and gave a cheer, and he raced him down the mountain like a torrent down its bed, while the others stood and watched in very fear. He sent the flintstones flying, but the pony kept his feet. He cleared a fallen timber in his stride, and the man from Snowy River never shifted in his seat. It was grand to see that horseman ride through the stream barks and saplings on the rough and broken ground. Down the hillside at a racing pace he went, and he never drew the bridle till he landed safe and sound at the bottom of that terrible descent. He was right among the horses as they climbed the further hill, and the watchers on the mountain standing mute saw him ply the stock whip fiercely. He was right among them still, as he raced across the clearing in pursuit. Then they lost him for a moment, where two mountain gullies met in the ranges, but a final glimpse reveals on a dim and distant hillside the wild horses racing yet, with the man from Snowy River at their heels. And then he ran them single-handed till their sides were white with foam, and he followed like a bloodhound on their track till they halted cowed and beaten, and then he turned their heads for home, and alone and unassisted brought them back. But his hardy mountain pony, he could scarcely raise a trot. He was blood from hip to shoulder from the spur, but his pluck was still undaunted and his courage fiery hot, for never yet was mountain horse a cur. And down by Kosciuszko, where the pine-clad ridges raise their torn and ragged battlements on high, where the air is clear as crystal and the white stars fairly blaze at midnight in the cold and frosty sky, and where they overflow the reed beds sweep and sway to the breezes and the rolling plains are wide, the man from Snowy River is a household word today, and the stockmen tell the story of his ride. That was a rather long poem called The Man from Snowy River by A.B. Banjo Patterson, published in 1890. Okay, am I indeed out of poems? Oh, no. We definitely have some more. This one has Latin, which I think I'll skip because I don't speak Latin. I'm not confident in my ability to read it correctly. Okay, sorry about that. Just need to hydrate a bit and clear my throat. Okay. Here's another new poem for me. This is called The Green Eye of the Little Yellow God by J. Milton Hayes, published in 1911. There's a one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu. There's a little marble cross below the town. There's a broken-hearted woman tends the grave of Mad Karoo, and the yellow god forever gazes down. He was known as a Mad Karoo by the subs of Kathmandu. He was hotter than they felt inclined to tell, but for all his foolish pranks he was worshipped in the ranks. And the colonel's daughter smiled on him as well. He had loved her all along with the passion of the strong. The fact that she loved him was plain to all. She was nearly 21 and arrangements had begun to celebrate her birthday with a ball. He wrote to ask what present she would like from Mad Karoo. They met next day as he dismissed a squad, and jestingly she told him then that nothing else would do but the green eye of the little yellow god. On the night before the dance, Mad Karoo seemed in a trance, and they chaffed him as they puffed at their cigars. But for once he failed to smile, and he sat alone a while, then went out into the night beneath the stars. He returned before the dawn with his shirt and tunic torn, and a gash across his temple dripping red. He was patched up right away, and he slept through all the day, and the colonel's daughter watched beside his bed. He woke at last and asked if they could send his tunic through. She brought it, and he thanked her with a nod. He bade her search the pocket, saying, "That's from Mad Karoo." And she found the little green eye of the god. She upbraided poor Karoo in the way that women do, though both her eyes were strangely hot and wet. But she wouldn't take the stone, and Mad Karoo was left alone with the jewel that he'd chanced his life to get. When the ball was at its height, on that still and tropic night, she thought of him and hurried to his room. As she crossed the barrack square, she could hear the dreamy air of a waltz tune swiftly stealing through the gloom. His door was open wide, with silver moonlight shining through. The place was wet and slippery where she trod. An ugly knife lay buried in the heart of Mad Karoo. 'Twas the vengeance of the little yellow god. There's a one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu. There's a little marble cross below the town. There's a broken-hearted woman tends the grave of Mad Karoo, and the yellow god forever gazes down. That was a poem called The Green Eye of the Little Yellow God by J. Milton Hayes, 1911. That was my first time reading it. I find it interesting. Certainly there are some cultural aspects to that, unique to that period of time in Western history. 1911. This was a time when Western civilization was clashing with colonizing other societies, such as Kathmandu. And I think people were quite fascinated by the traditional religions and beliefs of those societies that they were encountering, such as a little yellow god idol in Kathmandu. And I think this poem also captures or exposes the lack of respect, I guess, that those traditional beliefs and cultures got from Western cultures, but sort of a simultaneous lack of respect and also interest and a little bit of reverence if that's possible. Alrighty, let's see, we've been streaming now for over an hour. I think I might turn off the treadmill and maybe finish the stream. I do think I will come back and stream more soon, but I think for now an hour is good enough. I'm going to close the stream by reading the same poem I opened the stream with. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, published in 1922, just about exactly 100 years ago. Written shortly after that last poem we just read. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harnessed bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It really is quite a wonderful poem, I think. It has an interesting rhyme structure also. Each stanza is 4 lines. And the third line does not rhyme with anything within its own stanza, but rather establishes the rhyme for the following one. That pattern continues until the final stanza, where everything rhymes. Oh, hello, Garikin. How you doing? I just had a great poetry jam here. I was just about to end stream, but if you'd like to listen to some poetry, I'd be happy to hang out and read some more. I believe you're currently my only viewer. Why don't I read one more? Another one by Robert Frost. This one's called Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line, and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are lows, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them, Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having the thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. Alrighty, that was The Mending Wall by Robert Frost, published in 1914. And I think we might find somebody to raid. Thank you for the applause, Garrigan. I do appreciate it. What do we have streaming right now that I could raid with my single viewer? A very cringe raid. How about... Oh, I could bring one viewer to the monkey streamer. Are you familiar with the monkey? The monkey doing ASMR. Level of quality is roughly the same as my quality, I guess. Or maybe not. Hardly anyone I know is currently streaming. How about Ivy Heels? Ivy Heels is an IRL streamer. I usually like to raid VTubers, but we'll go with her. Why isn't this working? There we go. Okay, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, here is... Here is the raid message. If you care to copy it. Okay. Oh, I seem to have lost my viewers, so perhaps I shan't raid after all. It's just embarrassing to raid with only one person. So I'll end stream there.